Welcome to the first video in a series that I'm going to do on some of my popular tracks. Not really tutorial videos, more of a how I do things type of video. What I'm doing may or may not be right, but it's what I do, and I like how it sounds. So yeah, let's start out. So I have here my one of my popular tracks, "I'm the Darkness." My process when making a song is I'll go in and I'll find a vocal sample. I use Splice. It's great, until I start to work with vocalists for original content. I use this because I'm fairly new at producing. So I use Splice to kind of help build a song until I get those connections. So anyways, I started with this vocal sample right here.
Baby, I'm the darkness, you're the light, you make my heart open right up. And daily, it's hard to see, but you show me there's more to love, more than enough.
Okay, so I found that vocal sample and loved it, so I decided to build a song around it. So what I do in my tracks is I'll take a vocal sample, put it 30 seconds to a minute into the song so that I can kind of start to build items around it. I have a template where I have, chords, a synth lead, drum tracks all laid in with EQs and serum on, default on the track so that I don't have to build that when I start a song. I can just get right in and start, making something. So the next thing that I did was, if we go to, where is it? It's been a while since I've been in this project. Okay, up here. So the chords, right? First thing I do is chords. I try to build something that complements the vocals. Obviously, you want something that sits well with the vocals. What I did was I wrote this. Very simple, nothing complicated. And then what I have going on in that is it's just, EQ cutting out the lows. I cut it off a little bit further than I normally do, but the lows were kind of muddying everything up. So I have it compressed to the kick, sidechained. I have it sidechained to the vocoder in the very beginning. We'll get to that later. And then I have another compressor just to kind of tame peaks and stuff like that. So after I wrote that, then I just do a simple sub bass line. I like to do a sub bass and the bass line separately on different tracks. So then, I can control each. I don't know if that's right. That's just what I do. But sub bass is like this. It's just a sine wave, nothing special. A little bit of compression, side chain compression, just to duck it out of the way when the kick hits and all that. Here's the bass line. Now, at this time, I'm still learning how to do like really good thick bass lines, and this one was the best I could do at the time. So it sounds like this. Not my best work. So yeah, it's still a learning phase here. Obviously we learn every day when we do this, but that bass line, it's very simple. I found out that sometimes simple is the best thing to do. So, and then if I go down here, my project, then I have my kick. Now, this beat is strictly a 4 on the floor. There's no variation in the kick at all. Like it's literally 4 on the floor all the way through. Now my more recent tracks have a lot more movement in the kick, and but in this song, I was going to go back into it and do something with the kick and give it a little bit of movement, but I felt that the song didn't warrant anything more than a 4/4 kick. Like I messed with it, I tried different patterns, and to me, I just didn't like it. I thought it fit so much better with this. So it is literally just 4 on the floor. That's it. Have a little bit of EQ to bring out some of the low end because the kick was a bit weak, and I took off I took off some of the high end because it had like this slap to it that I didn't really care for. And then we'll go to the snare. Snare is basic. And this is a Lindrum snare. My favorite snare. It's definitely in almost all my tracks. Like, I use the Lindrum snare a lot. I love how it sounds. I love the tone of it, the snappiness of it, the retro sound of it, everything about it I love. Little bit of reverb, snare gate, so a gated reverb on there just to give it a little bit of echo. Again, I was learning what I was doing at this time, so like my reverb on the snare is much better these days. But I was learning. And then another thing that I did back then when I made this song was I used to cut a lot of lows out, but I found that you can actually get away with leaving a lot more of the lows in there. So if I pull this back a little bit, so you'll hear this snare, and it's got much more snap and punch to it. See how that sounds a little hollow. But you do that, it's got much more snap, right? But the song is done, and this is what I did, so it's going to stay there. Unless I do like a remix, remaster of it, which I've done several times to some of my tracks. But this one sits pretty good. So then I did a simple hi-hat, right? Nothing too special. Just an 808 closed hat. I like it. Sounds, a little retro. It's familiar. Nothing too much. A little bit of random pan, 20%, gives it really good movement between the ears, but not so much to where you're like, what's going on here? Again, I threw a EQ on here. It's on all my tracks, so it's not really being used. I didn't use it to shape any of the high end. I thought it sat pretty good how it was. And then I put these sticks in there, so it's just a little bit of ear candy underneath. Right, it's just a 808 rim shot, a little bit of reverb on it, cut off the low end. Not a whole lot going on it, but it's there, and if it's not there, you notice it. So this section sounds like this.
Baby, I'm the darkness, you're the light, you make my heart open wide up.
Yep. So there's that section. That's the main verse. And then when I was writing that, I was like, ooh, maybe I'll do a synth line that, repetition is key, but too much repetition ruins it. So I wrote this. So, it's repeating this C sharp, just kind of just a pattern. And then I just have a few notes going up and, down, all that. Trying to, give it a little bit of movement, but not enough to where it's just all over the place. I try to keep usually things within 4 or 5 notes of the bass note or the, whatever note that I'm writing in, which this song is in C sharp minor. I wrote that. Then what I decided to do was I'm going to open the song. I kind of found this vocoder right here. I thought it sounded pretty cool. I found that and I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll tease the melody. Maybe I'll tease that, to kind of give a little bit of, what's coming. Like, even though it's only a few bars later, but it's always nice to get, a little bit into it. So I did this. And, it's just an intro. It kind of lets you know, wanted to set the tone of the song, so I think that gives a good balance to, the opening. It kind of like gives you a little tease what's coming, and then it kicks in. So then I've heard this sample used in several tracks, and most people like to call this song like Say Goodbye or Goodbye. But I heard a line in there where she says, I'm the darkness. And I was like, oh, I like that. And it would make an awesome song title. So if you hear here.
Baby, I'm the darkness, you're the light, you make my heart.
So she says, I'm the darkness. So I'm like, ooh, that's going to be what the whole song centers around. So I took that and I chopped it up and put it in here. And then I have it kind of echo. And I did some pitch modulation. What I did was I have it fade in and out with volume automation. I did this on the track volume, but now I use the utility and then use the utility so that if I want to change this volume here, I don't have to sit here and go through all these nodes and highlight everything and then bring it up, whatever. It's better to use a utility on the track and then automate that. That way your track volume here just stays the same. Lesson learned, I don't do that anymore. But if you listen to it, it kind of fades out and then it'll fade back in, fades out to nothing, and then it kind of comes back. And then it fades back out, but then it comes back in for, when the song kind of picks up into the vocoder here. So if we listen to it in full with the beginning and the vocals. And then you'll hear it come back in. And then again. Now, I could have easily chopped some of these out and not used them, but I just duplicated it and then just automated it. That way I didn't have to worry about when it came in or if there was any weird, pops in the vocals or whatever. So it's just what I do. So the next thing. So what I like to do with my vocals, what I used to do with my vocals, and I started doing this different, is the main verse, I used to put doubles and double it up and all that, but then I found out that I prefer the main verse just to be centered, and that's what you're focused on. Usually when I do a main verse, I usually take elements out, although I didn't here. So as you can see in this project, these are actually not being used. These two vocal tracks, I didn't like how it sounded, so I took them out. But what I did was during this main vocal, I have this I'm the Darkness chop and kind of cements that through the entire song. So if we listen to that. So what I like to do is in vocals, if you look at this is the main vocal here. So a lot of times there's breaks, in between in the verse. And what I like to do is fill that with some kind of echo or ear candy if it's like a synth or something like that. So it just, to me, it gives it more it makes it more interesting. So if we listen to the vocal with just the vocal, you'll hear how it complements that emptiness in between the vocal phrases.
Baby, I'm the darkness, you're the light, you make my heart open right up.
Yeah, so it's very simple. We'll just chop it up, throw it into that part of the song, line it up so that it time-wise hits right, and then it makes it more interesting. Now, another thing that I like to do, again, I have this track volume automated, but a lot of people use de-essers, which is fine. I tried to use one and I didn't like it. So what I like to do is I like to go in and manually cut volume wise peaks S's, your sibilants. And some people don't do it that way, but it's the way that I do it because I think I have much more control over it. It does take a lot longer, but overall, I think the sound is just much more natural because, sometimes I'll do heavy cuts if it's a really sharp, H sound or something like that, or if it's a P that's popping, I'll do a cut like that. But yeah, so if had I done this on a utility, I could just turn it off and show you how it sounds, but I did it on the track volume, and I don't want to go back and re-automate all that. But you can use a de-esser, that's fine. I tried it and didn't care for it, so now I manually de-ess all my vocals. I know, crazy, right? For the second part of the vocals, I had this sample here, and this is it's a sample pack, so you get several different vocals that all match the theme of the song. And this was one of the vocals, and you can decide how you want to arrange it, and the freedom is yours. So this vocal was the next in the pack, so I picked this one.
'Cause I'm nothing without you, it's hard to breathe. Yeah, I'm nothing without you don't work for me.
And then I also have, On the Darkness sprinkled into that vocal as well, to kind of reinforce that that's what the song is about. Again, here I did 2 other vocals, and I didn't like how it sounded together. So I'll explain that later because there's a section here that I'm going to get to. But what I did was, you have this main synth line that's playing.
Make my heart
Right, so the synth line is very repetitive, but it works. And then what I like to do in my tracks is, we'll go down here. Every 8 bars, I like to change something up, whether it be snares, a different snare pattern, or in this case, I have these hi-hats on 8th notes, and then going into this next section, I have 16th notes, and then I have the volume, set to kind of bounce up and down. So if you can hear, the velocity is a little bit different on each one. One's quieter, makes a little bit of a groove. Again, still learning at this point when I made this song, so hi-hat patterns can be a little bit more interesting now. But then if I get to this section, it goes in the 16th, brings up the energy of the song. So then what I did was I took that same melody here, and then I just brought it up an octave along with the 16th notes in the hi-hats, and then that second vocal phrase, and it kind of brings the energy up a little bit. So and then I took it to this, and I changed the pattern slightly. So yeah, I changed the pattern slightly. So if we look at the pattern, so this is the low one, and it's just a sustained note and then a secondary note. It's like just a timing thing. And this one I decided to put 2 notes. Over here, same thing, 1 sustained note and then 2 notes. Gives it a little bit more of a groove. So then all together, it sounds like this. But yeah, so the goal was to give it a little bit of higher energy. And then I wrote this. This is a pluck. I like plucks when it's not the main synth melody. So it kind of goes into not a break, but after the vocal verses, it goes into this is the next section of the song. So here's another example of every 8 bars I like to change it up. So then I wrote this. And I did that so it would tie the 2 sections together. So Sounds like this. You know, you kind of see what I did there. I kept the same basic, a lot of these notes hit on this C sharp because that's the key of the song. So I didn't want to stray too far from the original melody, but this really kind of cements that tone of the song. So I liked it. So then we go into another 8-bar section, and again I did a different melody for this, and I took the sub bass out, and then down here I took all the drums out. Left some risers and stuff in there. But the idea here was to bring the energy out of the song and then bring it into the next section. So there's a definite shift in energy going from nothing and then bringing it back up. So then it sounds like this. What I like to do with this section is I just wrote this melody, and what I like to do a lot of times is, you know, it's an 8-bar loop, but then at the end of 4 bars I like to run up or down to the next octave. I just love how it sounds. So if we listen to that solo. Pretty simple. Not a lot going on in that one either. It's just, if I pull Serum over here, let me pull this in. It's literally a saw wave, square wave, some filter cutoff on envelope 2, automated. It's not static, you know. It gives a little bit of movement. You can see the filters cutting it off. Little hyper dimension, distortion for kind of give it a little bit more grit. Not a lot going on. I like this sound design, most of my own stuff. Nothing wrong with presets. I'll use presets here and there, tweak them to how I want. Now what I do is I usually get a preset that I really like, and then I'll reverse engineer it and make my own. That way I learn how to do it. Nothing, like I said, nothing wrong with presets, just how I do it nowadays. But then I bring in, it just kind of goes through this section, that cuts out. And then another thing I like to do is I like to use reverse reverb. So I'll take the first note of, like, say this synth line. I'll take this first note and I'll duplicate it onto another track and then put a reverb on it that's 100% wet, freeze flatten the track into an audio, and then reverse it so that the tail leads into the whatever sound it is. So it could be a vocal, it could be a snare hit, could be a kick, you know, it's whatever you want it to be. But then it sounds like this and kind of gives you a tease of what's coming before it actually gets there. Right? So it's simple but effective. It's a good trick to introduce something to the listener before it actually gets there. And then what it does is I found that subconsciously it lets you know that there's a change coming. Again, it's, you know, you don't have to do it everywhere, but I do it a lot. The next section is, so I have this vocal line that I got from that pack, and I really liked it.
I'm never gonna say goodbye. No, I never wanna say goodbye to you.
And this is where a lot of people end up naming the song Say Goodbye, you know. And I chose a different one. But now in this section, now this is what I do a lot in my songs now. In this section, I have the main vocal down the center, a little bit of reverb, you know, a little bit of EQ. And then I like to duplicate that vocal but I'd like to pan it to the left a little bit, offset the latency. So if you hit this button down here, you can change where it sits in the grid. So this is like 5 milliseconds, back, I believe. But what it does is if you have two vocal lines that are exactly the same and they're playing exactly in time, it just makes it louder. So you do this trick to separate the two so that they're not hitting at the same exact time, and it gives a little bit of space, makes it sound a little bit more stereo. And then what I'll do is I'll duplicate it twice, and I'll do one to the left, one to the right, and I'll offset them. And this one, I did another one to the center for this, and I offset it by 20 milliseconds, 10 seconds, or milliseconds, 5 milliseconds. And then I did a vocal lead-in, reverse reverb lead-in to the vocal, I should say. So if we look at these together, this was the next section of the song, and you can hear that it leads in.
I'm never gonna say goodbye. I never wanna say goodbye to you. I'm never gonna say goodbye. I never wanna say goodbye. Say goodbye.
So you hear I have some of that, pitch. So this one is plus 12 semitones or an octave up. This one is negative 12 semitones, which is an octave down. And this one is just straight up, same as this one. It's just offset by a few milliseconds. And it kind of creates this stereo effect. And, that's what I like to do. And then for this section, I used this vocal.
Oh, baby, please don't ever leave. I'll let the sun go back to sleep, but I'll be here when you need me. You're everything I'll ever need, 'cause it's your love I wanna keep. I'm never gonna say goodbye.
Again, very simple, nothing to it. On the bus, I have some reverb, some EQ to cut out rumble if there is any, a little bit of a delay on the entire, because I have all these in a group, and then a little bit of glue compressor to compress all of them together. Again, it's don't know if it's right. It's just what I do, and I like how it sounds. So somebody once told me a long time ago, if it sounds good, then it is good. So, but if you see that something I'm doing is wrong or whatever, let me know in the comments. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm just, kind of just doing my thing, right? Like I said, in this section, I pull everything out. And I did no chords, no melody, no nothing.
Oh, baby, please don't ever leave. I'll let the sun go back to sleep, but I'll be here when you need me. You're everything I'll ever need, 'cause it's your love I wanna keep. I'm never gonna say goodbye.
And then right here, in this section right here, I just take that say goodbye and I kind of run it out. It sounds cool. I liked it. So I kept it. I did it. This is what I did. Right, so brought in the 16th hats again, but this time what I did was I took the low melody and the high melody, and then I put the low melody to the right ear, the high melody to the left ear, to give it more energy. And also, it's a new section of the song, so my rule is I have to change something. So I'm like, oh, I can bring both in and bring some energy, to the song. So then it sounds like this together, the two melodies. Very simple. Nothing crazy, but in this section of the song, you have both melodies come in. It changes the entire vibe of the song, even though it's just adding two of these together. Nothing crazy. And then in this section, right after that, it's 8 bars. So my rule is I have to change something. So what I did here was I took out the sub bass, and then I brought the vocoder from the beginning of the song. I brought that back into this section and took out all the drums. You have some hi-hats in here to kind of like signify that there's a change coming. And I have this this swell. It's it just kind of builds up the next section, signifying that you're going to lead into something a little bit more powerful. So then I did this. And I have this melody playing really low to still tie it together. What I did here was I brought this, which is this earlier melody during this little break, and I brought it in here. But what I did was I just left the run into the high octave. If we listen to this. So I have those low notes, and then it does a run. So what I did was, in this section, I just had to do the run. I had to do the run up into the high octave of that for the second part of this little section. And then I have it get a little bit louder over time, to kind of bring in that tension. So then you'll hear right? Very simple but effective. And then if you notice in my drums, we're down here. I do this thing a lot in all my drums. It's been doing it for quite a while now. I use this cymbal riser. It's very simple. I put some reverb on it, let it ring out. But I do that every 8 bars that leads into the next 8 bar of hi-hats. And I'll use it to give a little bit of like a lead into the next section. I do it everywhere. So if we listen to this section, there it is. Or here, I do it here. Right? It's very simple, but if I take it out, right, it just sounds plain to me. Like here, we'll listen to this section right here. But this is with it on. Right? It just, to me, makes a huge difference. Had I not told you, you might not even notice it, but you kind of notice it when it's gone. At least I do. So in this next section, after that, so we go to more energy, I wrote this melody. Again, I like to do several melodies throughout the song to keep it interesting, So I did this. Basically an ARP. Again, basic, but in the context of the song, it gives a little bit of tension or, a change. And then another thing that I like to do is like beat cuts, if kind of adds a little bit of flavor. So like I did a beat cut here, beat cut there, beat cut at the beginning. I like to do those to add interest to the song. So again, in this section you hear it. And then I come back into the main vocal. People can do a vocal, main verse, and then a chorus, and then a breakdown, breakdown section, and then main verse again, and then you can do like a chorus, or, it depends on what you want to do. Some people start it with the chorus. I've done that in some of my songs where you start it with the hook, kind of get the listener into it. My rule of thumb is get the listener into the song sooner than later. But not so much when I first started out. I'd had songs that would do like a full minute of lead in, and then by that time nobody's interested anymore, and then they move on. So now I like to do songs where you kind of get into the meat of the song a little bit faster. It's just, it's the new age, and people want to find the next hottest thing. So, try to get them into your song quicker than not. So yeah, I kind of bring everything together here in this last section. I have the double melody for the main verse. And then, this is just copy and pasted. There's I don't redo the vocal automation, the volume automation on the vocal, just copy and paste it. And then I just run this section, run it out the rest of the song. Again, the song is very simple, but sometimes simple is where it's at. And this is definitely one of my more popular songs. And I think a big reason for that is the simplicity and the repetitiveness in the melody. Because if you make a melody that people can't hum, I find that it doesn't stick. Again, this melody right here is very simple. It's literally like, 4 notes, 5 notes. It's just a series of these notes. I try to keep them compact. You don't want them spread all the way out, up and down, because then that's a lot going on and people can't whistle that or hum it, So yeah, that's how I do things. Again, what you want to do is you want to try to keep everything organized. So I tried to do that. I was getting better with it here, like naming everything. This one's just named MIDI, but that's the opening synth. I try to keep everything named correctly so that when I'm going through my project, I'm not guessing at what things are. I find that it makes it a lot easier. Now, I got a little lazy with the vocals. Like I didn't name this, break vocal 2. I didn't do that here. Or I didn't name this reverse, vocal RR, which I call it for vocal reverse reverb. I could have named that vocal RR break, whatever. I didn't do that, but it's just the things that I do. And you just kind of like the cool thing about doing this is you do whatever you want. If it sounds good to you, then it sounds good to you, and I'm cool with that. Just kind of doing your own thing, and that's kind of why I do what I do. It sounds good to me. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, because I plan on doing a lot more of these in the future. But yeah, that's my song. Thanks for checking it out.